Spurs might genuinely be cooking something special ahead of next season, and I want to talk about it in today's video with a specific focus on a couple of signings that they have made, which I think are sensational pieces of business. First and foremost, we're going to be talking about Morgan Gibbs-White, what he brings to the Spurs team, and why I think this is such a good signing. And then we're going to talk about Mohamed Kudus, which is a player that I'm honestly surprised that Spurs have gotten, or at least are going to get by the looks of things. I don't think he's been officially announced by Spurs, but obviously we've got the here we go for both players. So let's talk about it in today's video, because I think that Spurs have lacked a player like Morgan Gibbs-White for a long time. And no disrespect to Maddison, but every time I watch Spurs, and I must qualify the statement by saying I don't watch them every week because I'm not a Spurs fan, but the few times I have watched Spurs, especially against my club, they just don't seem threatening enough as far as their midfield is concerned. And I don't think Maddison is producing the goods this past season. And I don't think he produced the goods the season before that either. And I think a big problem with James Maddison is that there isn't really any competition for him at Spurs currently without Morgan Gibbs-White there, right? I just think he's a player that when he's not playing well or when he's in bad form and things aren't quite clicking, Spurs don't have anyone else that they can look to fill that void and fill that hole. Morgan Gibbs-White solves that problem superbly because he's a player who's demonstrated a lot of qualities in that number 10 position. So let's talk about them. The first thing that jumps out to me the most is obviously the fact that he's got, I believe, 7 goals and 8 assists last season in the Premier League in a Nottingham Forest side that was definitely, by all general consensus, overachieving, which I think is impressive. So he's a goal threat and he's capable of getting assists as well, creating chances. But more than that, he's capable of being involved in the build-up play because technically he's quite a sound player. He knows how to drop deep, receive the ball, drive with it into space when he's given the space. If he's not given the space and if he's been pressed very heavily, he can play 1-2s and find ways to move the ball up the field as well, right? He's capable of that. And then in addition to that, in the final third, he is able to drift out wide and look for a cross or play centrally through the middle and look for those 1-2s, look for that link-up play, as I mentioned before. Another thing I really like about Gibbs-White as well is when his team is in transition and they're trying to break away fast, he's capable of dropping deep or dropping to the halfway line to receive the ball and play a quick switch killer ball over to one of the flanks, right? He's able to play that quick diagonal pass and give the winger a proper opportunity to run into space and attack the ball and create opportunities for his team. So you've got a player here who I think offers a lot on the ball, and I think his decision-making, coupled with his technical ability, will help Spurs a lot. Whether or not he can level up, because obviously Nottingham Forest are not on the same level as the traditional Big Six as far as like actually staying in those Champions League places. We don't know how Morgan Gibbs-White is going to perform at a club like that, right? And I know Spurs finish very low in the table, but as far as I'm concerned, they still are a part of the traditional top 6. They are in the Champions League next season. So it will be interesting to see if Morgan Gibbs-White can transfer these skill sets that I've mentioned to a team like Spurs, especially with a manager like Thomas Frank, who I think it's very hard to pin down what Spurs' style of play will be next season, because I imagine he'll be very adaptive like he was at Brentford. And I imagine he will be able to play aggressive and play on the front foot when he wants to, play pragmatic when he needs to, and keep it somewhere in between for the most part, right? Anyways, let's talk about Mohamed Kudus as well, because he's a player who's demonstrated an excellent ability to take people on and dribble. If you look at his successful take-ons, I believe he's in the top 5 across all the top 5 leagues in Europe, which is insane, by the way, in a West Ham team that was struggling last season. And I think by all accounts was a very poor team last season under Lopetegui, and I forget who their new manager is. So Kudus in that bad team demonstrated an excellent ability to drive with the ball into space, to dribble, create space for his teammates off the ball with his dribbling ability, and just be such an asset for West Ham going forward on the break and just in general play. In addition to that, he's very good in the half spaces, like receiving the ball when West Ham are in positions, which was rare last season, but when West Ham were in positions where they've built up from the back and gone all the way into the final third, he's really good at receiving the ball in tight spaces, in between the lines and in those half spaces, and he's good at making things happen there. He can play a decent cross in. He has an eye for a goal as well. Yes, he didn't get that much GA, but again, we can't stress the fact that this was a bad West Ham team. So I don't really look at Kudus's GA numbers last season and think that that's an accurate reflection of what he will do at Spurs. I think another aspect of his game that's really underrated is his physicality, right? He's not an easy player to dispossess. He will make it difficult for you to actually try to bring him down and take the ball off of him. So he's not a pushover, and physically he can withstand a lot. So I think Kudus is an excellent player. Again, I think he will provide competition for Kulusevski. With Kulusevski obviously having that nasty knee injury, there is a good chance he will start a lot of games for Spurs this season, I think. And I think he's a really good signing. So that's essentially why I think these two signings are really good for Spurs, a team that massively underachieved last season, despite the success and euphoria of winning the Europa League and making it back into the Champions League. I think any honest Spurs fan will admit that they were awful last season. And before you say, I'm a United fan, we lost in the final, we finished 15th, that's exactly why I can assess when a team has been awful, because my club is awful and I watch them every week. So I'm a connoisseur of awful teams, and I think I am qualified. I have a PhD in watching crap teams play football. So anyways, it's been your boy Triple M. Leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and let me know in the comments down below what you think of Spurs' summer so far, because it's not just Kudus, it's not just Gibbs-White. Obviously, Thomas Frank, the main man himself, has arrived at Spurs. What do you think he's going to be able to do with this team? It will be interesting to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Peace!